Hello everyone and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k guides. I am Brady and today I will be covering the top 10 armies of September. I make the list based off of how many times each army has made the top 3 in the month of December, and I get the results from ITC sanctioned tournaments. If you don't know what the ITC is, it's the Independent Tournament Circuit, and it is exactly what it sounds like, an independent tournament circuit. So basically, the big leagues of Warhammer 40k competitive. And I know you've all been waiting patiently for this list since my last one, so I won't waste any more time. Let's get right into it. Number 10, Imperial Knights. Just like last month, it seems the Knights just barely made it into the top 10 again. And again like last month, I believe it's only because of the meta and how it's so reliant on anti-infantry right now because of Horde armies, that bringing a super heavy only list is anti-meta, and it actually does really good because most of your opponent's lists are geared towards killing infantry. Number 9, Genestealer Cult. I believe this is the same spot as last month as well, with the same amount of placings as well too. So as you probably noticed, so far this list hasn't changed yet from last month, but trust me, it will. So Genestealers are doing well by allying Nids. They make up for what the Nids are bad at, which is shooting. Getting access to some of the guard weaponry also helps the army out a lot and brings them up to a competitive level. Number 8, Grey Knights. They were more like Imperium lists because they used a lot of the guard stuff and assassins, but they were using mainly Grey Knight stuff, which was the Grandmaster Dread Knights. In the list that I saw, they used about 4 to 6 Grandmaster Dread Knights. As a Grey Knight player, I can also admit that they're actually pretty good right now. They also spam some cheap Guard Psychers and some Conscript. I think there are other ways to play Grey Knights competitively, but I'll leave that for the upcoming Grey Knight faction focus video. Number 7, Tau. Commander spam is still here, and I still hope they buff the other stuff when the Codex is released, because right now Tau doesn't look fun at all. It's about 6 commanders with a tons of drones to soak up wounds for them. It's super cheesy, and I'm hoping Games Workshop does something about it quick. Not because I think the army is imbalanced or anything, I just don't like cheesy armies that abuse a mechanic, and in this case the drone saves and the character rule. They also use some stealth suits, but I'd love to see some Riptides again, and maybe even some Fire Warriors. Or maybe even a Storm Surge. I still really like those models, and it's too bad that they aren't good anymore. Here's to hoping the rest of Tau gets better when their Codex gets released. Number 6, Dark Angels. Azael or Azrael, whatever his name is, hasn't gone anywhere, and he's still giving a bunch of Dreadnoughts a 4-up invulnerable save. It's an army with a huge alpha strike potential, but also a lot of resiliency due to its pretty much army-wide 4++ save. It's also probably one of the most resilient gunline armies in the game right now. If you like Dreadnoughts, then current Dark Angels is the army for you. I'm sure this will change in the future when they get their Codex, but for now, it's Dreadnought spam. Number 5, Orks. The boys are still in town. Weird boy spam with a few units of 30 boys, some commandos, and some big guns were used in one of the lists. Lots of weird boys actually, enough to actually consider it as a smite spam list. So to summarize the strategy, it was probably the big groups of boys surrounding the weird boys and brought them up the board safely so they could smite things to death while everything else just shoots. And also if the boys get close enough without dying, they can also charge in and kill some stuff on their own. I'm glad Orks are doing well in this edition though. They are definitely one of the fan favorites and they really deserve it. And before we get into the top 4 armies, let's give some honorable mentions to some of the armies that had at least one top 3 placing in an ITC event in September. We have Death Guard, Sisters of Battle, Adeptus Mechanicus, Blood Angels, Officio Assassinorum, Adeptus Custodes, Tyranids, and Renegade Knights. So now with that said, let's get on to the top 4 armies of September. Now, I'm going to talk about the next 4 armies together because there isn't much to say about them since they are all the same top 4 from last month, just with one change in the order. So number 4 is Ultramarines, number 3 is Inari, number 2 is Imperial Guard, and the top army is Chaos. So to quickly go over them, Ultramarines are winning because of Bobby G and friends. They are probably the most efficient shooting army because of Bobby G, and that's basically it. Inari seems to be getting creative with some of their lists, but for the most part what makes Inari strong is their Soul Burst rule and being able to shoot on their opponent's turn. As for Guard, I know everyone probably figured they would retain their number 1 spot, but remember, this was pre-Codex Guard. And also remember, Chaos is insanely strong right now because GW still hasn't nerfed Malefic Lords. I originally wanted to have Alpha Legion and Chaos Demons as separate armies, but the more I looked through the list, I noticed almost no one played mono armies. Everyone had some Alpha Legion, some Demons, Magnus, and some Renegades and Heretics. So I lumped them all together because they are basically the same army, and they're Chaos. It's still mortal wound spam, but has been played with other gimmicks like horror spam, infiltrating berserkers, masked cultists with malefic lords. Hopefully GW gets around to nerfing the Malefic Lord, because even as a Chaos player myself, I think the unit is kind of ridiculous. Definitely undercosted. So overall, these are the top 10 armies. It looks like Mortal Wound spam is becoming more and more popular in all shapes and forms. But Chaos is still the king of it. And also, we have a few armies that weren't here from last time. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry if you were hoping that the list would be completely different from last month. But as of right now, because the codexes just were released, we haven't really had time for the new meta to sink in. So it looks like the old meta is still pretty much here, give or take a couple of armies. If you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Subscribe for more Warhammer 40k content if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. Happy wargaming!